What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Gage. Welcome to the channel. Today, I am excited to show off my Tri-Brigade Melfi deck list that I took to locals this past weekend and actually managed to get top 8 with. Really excited. I've been sitting on the deck for a while, but I decided, you know what? Let me just try and take it for the first time and ended up getting top 8 with it, which just goes to show that this is easily a top contender of the format. Definitely one of the best decks that you can play, and I'm going to go ahead and show off why it's so powerful in the deck profile. I'll go over the card by card as well as show off the Naturia Beast combo at the end of the video, so stick around for that. If you do end up purchasing any of the cards that you see in the video, please consider using my TCGplayer link down in the description below. It really does help this small but humble channel. So I'm going to hop right into the profile. And like a lot of lists nowadays, I am playing 3 copies of Rescue Cat. It is your power card. If you manage to actually stick this on the field, you are going to be snowballing in advantage. Your opponent is either going to have Valor or have the Imperm for this, just because once this resolves, you are going to snowball an advantage being able to get those 2 level 3 or lower beast type monsters from the deck to your side of the field. So Rescue Cat is great. It's also getting a reprint in maximum gold, which means that it will be even more affordable so that people can continue to build Tri-Brigade and enjoy the deck themselves. So 3 copies of Rescue Cat. It's cute, but it's really unassuming because it is very powerful. I'm also playing 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Fractal. So as for the Tri-Brigade engine, obviously this is pretty standard. You can pitch this one from your hand to the grave to send a Tri-Beast monster from the deck to the grave. So this is really powerful. Obviously, it gets the engine going. A lot of the times I just use this to bait Ash, and if my opponent does not have an answer for it, I'm going to start sending Tri-Brigades from the deck to the grave and getting their effects. All the Tri-Brigades also have an on-field effect where you can banish any number of Tri-Beasts from the graveyard to special summon a monster from the extra deck with a link rating that equals the amount of Tri-Brigades, or monsters, Tri-Beast monsters rather, that you banish from the grave. So if you banish 2 from the grave, you could cheat out a monster from the extra deck that is a link 2. So pretty simple, but the combos can get pretty crazy. In the hands of a great pilot, this deck is a force to be reckoned with. And honestly, I'm still learning the deck. So the fact that I managed to top is just playing it at tournament for the first time is pretty crazy. And of course, I'm playing 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Kit. This is the one where if it's sent to the graveyard, you can send a Tri-Brigade from the deck to the graveyard. So it helps you to load the grave, get those effects going. And then, of course, it has the on-field effect to banish the Tri-Beast to special summon a monster from the extra deck. So 3 copies of Kit. It's pretty great. And of course, even in your worst hands, if you have to normal summon this, you can use this to go into the All Mirage, trigger it because it was sent to the graveyard, and then continue to snowball from there. So that's the thing about this deck, is that you don't really brick all that often, and even your worst hands are usually able to get you there in one way or another. And then I am playing 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Nerval. This is the one where if it's sent to the grave, you can add a Tri-Beast to your hand, a Tri-Brigade monster to your hand, so that is obviously really, really good. You could use it to add a Fractal. If you already have a Kuras, you can add a Kuras if you already have the Fractal. So you could pretty much sculpt your hand to however you really need it, so that's why Nerval is so powerful. And then, of course, we are playing 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Kuras. I know I don't see every list playing this, but honestly, it's an incredible extender. I am also playing 3 copies of Pot of Desires, so that is also a reason why I wanted to bump it up to 3, but I don't mind seeing it. If something happens where someone does Ash my Fractal, then I can at least discard a Tri-Beast to be able to special summon this from the hand, so that I can use its ability to actually banish from the grave and then start special summoning monsters, and you know the rest. So Tri-Brigade Kuras is actually really good at 3 copies. I haven't been minding it. And now for the Melfi package, I am playing the 1 copy of Melfi Puppy, the 1 Valeraphon, and then the 2 copies of Calantosa. These are the only real bricks that the deck has, but if they do manage to stick around in the deck, then you are going to have a very valuable resource at your disposal, just because you are able to special summon these off of the cat to go into a Joyous Melfis, which I'll explain a little bit later. But essentially, these cards, when they're special summoned, they do have the ability to target a card on your opponent's side of the field and destroy it. And that's any card, so it could be a monster, a spell, or trap, and that can really set your opponent back. The Joyous Melfis will actually make it so that you could special summon 2 of them so that you can destroy 2 cards on your opponent's side of the field. That, on top of an already strong Tri-Brigade board, is actually really, really threatening. And then, of course, the Melfi Puppy is actually good because you can special summon it on your end phase if it's in your hand, and then if your opponent normal special summons or attempts to attack into your monsters, you can actually bounce this back to your hand to special summon one of your beasts from the deck. In this case, I usually go for the Calantoso so that you can get a pop. The Valeraphon is relevant because you are going to need it off of the Obedience School combo that I'm also playing, which allows you to get into the Naturia Beast because it's a tuner and an Earth monster. So they were really great for me the entire weekend. Usually when I resolve the Obedience School, it's usually GG's from there, and these cards are really great assets to the deck. And then for some of the hand traps, I'm playing 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. It is the most generic hand trap, so it's kind of one of those things that you have to play just because. And Ash Blossom, you know, every deck at this point either adds a card from the deck to hand or sends to the grave or special summons from the deck. So yeah, I mean, there's no real replacement for it. You're going to want to play 3 copies in a competitive build like this. And then I actually like my 2 ofs, so I am playing 2 copies of Gameciel and 2 copies of Nibiru. I know that this isn't standard, but I have managed to catch some people off guard with this. There are going to be a lot of instances in which you're maybe going up against the Anagnister monster that is unaffected by card effects, maybe a Winda. There are a lot of cards out there that I even saw a Goki player where their extra deck monster is unaffected. So I really just want to be able to know that I have access to a monster in the deck that can actually just tribute over the problematic issue so that I can continue to play the game. So I like actually having them in the deck. Obviously, don't want to brick on them, so I don't want 3 copies of it. Same with Nibiru, obviously really great. This actually won me a game against the Live Twin deck. There are a lot of random rogue decks where this is going to hit that really make a big impact, like B-Trooper, like Virtual World in some instances. So I actually like main decking it, and of course the 3rd copies are in the side deck as well. But of course, it's kind of your own flavor, right? Like, obviously, these could end up being Drolls if you'd like. You could replace these with Lancias. Kind of the world is your oyster in that instance. I just like having high-impact ones like these. And that's it for the monsters. Now to move on to the spells. Like I mentioned, I am playing 3 copies of Obedience Schooled. Obviously, a super broken card being able to special summon 3 level 2 or lower beast monsters with different names from the deck. Obviously, the effects are negated, and you're locked into beast for the rest of the turn. But man, once you hit those 3 monsters onto the field, you have so much advantage at that point. Even if your opponent does ash it, it's not the end of the world, because usually you'll have something like a Fractal or a Kuras that can help you to actually get into the main Tri-Brigade combo that you can lean on. So Obedience Schooled is not the make or break, but it is obviously a consistency booster. And I like knowing that the deck has access to a bomb. And even if your opponent does ash it, because of the fact that it's being negated by the Ash Blossom, the effect that locks you into beast monsters for the rest of the turn is no longer active, which means that you don't have to worry about kind of that downside. So 3 copies of Obedience Schooled is what I've been enjoying, and almost every time I resolved it, I was able to get into a Naturia Beast of some kind or a Joyous Melfis, and my opponent was not happy. And then I am playing 2 copies of Pot of Desires, guys. This is my personal preference. I understand consistency, yada, yada, yada. At the end of the day, if I see it, it's great. If not, it's not the worst thing in the world. My issue is that I really don't want to Pot of Desires into 2 more Pot of Desires. So if you want to play the 3rd, go for it. But honestly, 2 was great for me all weekend. It baited a couple ashes, but sometimes it actually went through. And a Tri-Brigade player with that many cards in their hand is really scary. So yeah, that's why I say, like, Ash Blossom is just so good to run in the main deck, because especially since there's a lot of powerful pot cards in the game right now, Pot of Extravagance, Pot of Prosperity, you really just want to have the ashes for those, and Desires is yet another reason why. You just don't want your opponent to have a free Pot of Greed. And like I mentioned, I like the 2 of, so 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone. This is great. I want to know that I have access to a card in the deck that can out Mystic Mine, that can out Problematic Floodgates. So having the 2 Cosmics in the deck is actually really great. There's a lot of decks out there that also just like to end on a counter trap, like the Bee Trooper, like the Dragon Maid Dragon Link deck. A lot of decks that just straight up want to end on a trap of some kind. So 2 Cosmics actually is more relevant than you think it is. And of course, it's great in the mirror match if you want to be able to get rid of your opponent's Revolt or force it out. So 2 has been great, and obviously the 3rd is in the side deck. And then the 1 Call by the Grave, yeah, you can play through hand traps, but of course, if you don't have to play through hand traps, that's also another great thing as well. You also just don't want to get blown out by things like Lancia. This is honestly one of the most sackiest cards in the game at this point, right? Because it just invalidates so many cards that allow your opponent to interact with you. So, yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, come on, just give us 3 copies at this point so that, you know, at least people, they can be like, all right, I have to worry about Call by the Grave. And people still do have to worry about it because I feel like I do get its effect off very often. But even if I'm not playing, if I don't get hand trapped, I can still use this to disrupt my opponent's grave, which is just as powerful. So the 1 copy has been really great for me. And now for the traps, I'm playing the best hand trap, in my opinion, Infinite Impermanence. Obviously, one of the few hand traps that does not lose to Called by the Grave, but just being able to imperm your opponent's Apollosa, or just being able to imperm something that is really, really problematic, like a Winda, and then, of course, getting the added utility of potentially being able to negate your opponent's spell or trap. Everyone, please do yourself a favor and get yourself these copies while they are affordable, just because it is really powerful. If you do have access to get 3 copies of the Cyber Strike Structure deck, you can get yourself 3 copies of Impermanence and a solid Rogue deck as well. So 3 copies of Imperm is pretty good. And then to round out the main deck, I am playing 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Revolt, mostly because we are playing Pot of Desire, so we want to make sure that we at least have 1 or 2 in the deck still. It is searchable, so if I wasn't playing the Pot of Desires, I would actually cut 1 copy. But 3, it's one of those things where if you draw into it, all right, now you don't have to worry about searching it. So at the end of the day, this is just a powerful card, being a mini soul charge that gets you into the Shurag, that helps you to banish your opponent's monster. It's just nutty. So honestly, I could see this card getting hit in the future just because of how powerful it really is. But for now, we're going to go ahead and enjoy it. Okay, so guys, that's it for the main deck. I'm going to go ahead and show off the extra deck. So I am playing 3 copies of Tri-Brigade Shurag the Ominous Omen, just a badass card all around, fantastic in every way. The fact that it can banish your opponent's cards, the fact that it's a pseudo-searcher, I'm glad that I had 3 copies. I know that some builds only play 2, but it actually came up in multiple games where I needed to get into the 3rd one, either to get a critical search off or to get that banish. So I'm glad that I played 3, and I highly recommend that every build plays 3 as well. And then I am playing 2 copies of Faragit. Very, very great link to go into having the ability to, of course, during your main phase, special summon a level 4 or lower Tri-Beast from the hand. You know, it's great. I mean, you're able to continue to link climb with this. When this is sent to the graveyard, it actually acts as kind of like a pseudo Graceful Charity where you could draw a card and then put a card from your hand back into the deck. That's actually really useful in the event where, say, you actually draw into like the Kalantosa, for example. You can actually draw a card and then put that card back in the deck when this is sent to the grave. So it's one of those things where even if you do end up drawing into one of the bricks, it's not really a brick, right? Because you can always put it back off of Faragit's effect. So 2 copies has been really good for me. Obviously, it's a beast, so this is going to be one of the cards you really want to get into when you're under Obedience Schooled. And then, of course, the 1 Bear Brum, simply for when it's sent to the grave, the ability to search for your Revolt. Obviously, you have to put a card back in the deck, but again, that ability to kind of mulligan and put some of your bricks back in the deck, or maybe a 2nd copy of Ash that's just kind of lingering in your hand, is really great. So the 1 Bear Brum has been pretty good for me, and of course, it's a beast that you could go into off of Obedience Schooled. 1 Rugal the Silver Sheller. pretty good. Usually you just use it to link line because it's a link 3, but its effect does come up where during your opponent's main phase you could special summon a level 4 or lower Tri-Beast from the grave. So that's really good because that Tri-Beast, if it on your opponent's end phase, ends up getting added back to your hand, so you could add something like a Fractal back to your hand, like a Kuras, and your opponent has to respect that. It means that by the time their turn ends, they really have to hope to get rid of that because now you're about to get an additional resource to your hand. So Rugal is kind of low-key a real MVP of the deck. 1 double Dragon Lords, this is amazing, guys. The fact that it is a quick effect to essentially send 1 card from your hand or field to the grave, including itself, to target a face-up card your opponent controls, return it to the hand. So this can return things like problematic floodgates, your opponent's normal summon in the event that they really need to get that critical normal summon off. So even in the mirror match, if your opponent tries to, for example, normal summon their own cat, you can use your double Dragon Lords, bounce it back to their hand, and you set them back for an entire turn. So this is amazing, guys. There have been so many times where I was able to send one of the Tri-Brigades to the graveyard so that I can load up for later, and then, of course, bounce my opponent's cards back to their hand, and I just can do this every single turn. So the double Dragon Lords, huge MVP of the deck. And then, of course, I have the 1 All Mirage. Like I mentioned, if you really need to normal summon your kit, you can actually use the kit to go into All Mirage and then continue to combo from there. So it's kind of necessary in those moments where you do need it. And then for the Link 4s, I'm playing Boral Sword and Appaloosa. Can't afford access code, or else the Boral Sword would be it. But the Boral Sword was able to win me a game on Saturday. So I will say, you know, it would have been a little easier to win the game with access code, but it wasn't a necessity, right? So if you can afford it, great. If not, Boral Sword gets the job done. And then usually you're going to be able to end on an Appaloosa on your opening turn. Just having the extra negates on top of your set Revolt is really powerful for this deck. It's kind of the bread and butter. And then for the Exceeds monsters, I'm playing 1 Sky Cavalry Centauria, 1 Joyous Melfis, and 1 copy of Ronin Raccoon Sendayu. Really great cards. The fact that you can use some of the level 2s that you get off of the Obedience Schooled or your Rescue Cat to go into some of these utility cards is really nice for the deck. The Sky Cavalry Centauria is non-targeting removal to be able to bounce a monster back to your opponent's hand, so I've used that to bounce my opponent's Dragoon after baiting their negate. I've used the Joyous Melfis plenty of times because you can just use 2 level 2 beast monsters. So usually you can use the cat to go into 2 copies of Calantosa and then overlay them into a Joyous Melfis so that you can quick effect send this back to the extra deck and then special summon 2 monsters. It's going to be the Calantosas that you used to make the Joyous Melfis in the first place back from the graveyard to your side of the field so that you could pop 2 cards your opponent controls. And that sets your opponent back really, really far in card advantage, so that's why I really like the Joyous Melfis. And then, of course, the Ronin Raccoon. I have used this to attack over really, really powerful stuff because you could detach to special summon a token, and that token gains attack equal to the monster on the field with the highest attack. So that's obviously really, really strong. You can use the Obedience School to bring out the kit, the puppy, and the Calantosa, and then use the kit and the Calantosa, detach the kit to get your token, and now you just triggered your kit so that you could start to get into your Tri-Brigade combo. So honestly, these cards are really, really great for the deck, and I highly recommend it. And then, of course, the 1 Naturia Beast, essentially the extra deck Imperial Order, so I don't even have to main deck that card. And yeah, I'm going to show off the combo involving this after I go over the side deck. All right, so moving through the side deck really quickly, I will say the side deck was performed really, really well. I played, of course, the 3 copies, the 3rd copy of all the cards in the deck that are at 2, so I can adjust accordingly. If I'm playing more back row, I'll throw this back in. If I know I am going to be going second against a deck that is going to put up a Towers, for example, then I know that I could just slide in the Gamma Seals, and I'm usually chilling. And then, of course, Nibiru for those combo-heavy decks that do not play around it. And then, of course, the 2 copies of Twin Twisters and Harpy's Feather Duster, just in case I am going against a trap-based deck. You really just want to be able to get rid of everything so that you can continue to play the game. I'm playing 3 copies of Artifact Lancia. This is obviously great for a lot of matchups. The mirror match specifically, Phantom Knights are a huge deck at my locals. Dinos, there's a really good Dino player at my locals that I almost exclusively side this for, but it does come up for a lot of other decks, so I do recommend playing Lancia. Lock your opponent out of their ability to banish. And then, speaking of banishing, I am playing High Impact, Evenly Matched. This is great. I mean, the look on your opponent's face when you enter battle and then end the battle, and now they just realize that they have to banish pretty much their entire field. Setting your opponent back that far usually means you're going to win the game, right? So if I know I'm going second and I'm going against a trap deck, for example, or a deck where I know that they're not going to establish an Omni Negate, then Evenly Matched is great. And even if they do establish an Omni Negate, this is going to 100% negate, bait out their negate so that you can continue to go into combos of your own. And lastly, in the side deck, I did play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment, just so that you're not blown away by, cards like Lightning Storm or Evenly Matched. You really just want to be able to say no to your opponent, and Solemn Judgment is the best card to do so. So, guys, thanks for sticking around for the deck profile. I'm going to go ahead and quickly show off the Naturia Beast combo, so please stick around for that. Alright everyone, welcome to the combo portion of the video. I'm going to try to make this one short and sweet, just because I do believe that the Naturia Beast combo is something that isn't the most prevalent at the moment, but I did still want to show it off. So without further ado, I'm going to show you what 1 copy of Obedience Schooled can get you into. So you're going to go ahead and fire off the Obedience Schooled, and assuming that you do not get ashed, you can then go ahead and special summon 3 level 2 or lower beasts from the deck that have different names. In this case, you're just going to want to go for a Calantosa, a Bellerophon, and a Kit. I guess it doesn't really matter if you special summon this or the puppy, but you do want to make sure that you have access to the Kit and the Bellerophon. Leave the Bellerophon on the field for as long as possible, because that is the tuner that's going to get you into the Naturia Beast, but you do want to make sure that Kit is going to be used for the Exceed Summon. So let's go ahead and Exceed Summon into using the Kit and the Calantosa to go into a copy of Ronin Raccoon Sendayu. So Ronin Raccoon has the ability where you can detach, so you're going to go ahead and detach that Kit, like I mentioned in the profile, to actually special summon a token. It's a level 1, and that's pretty much everything that you need to know about it. Its attack stats and all that are pretty unnecessary. I'm just going to go ahead and move things around just for aesthetic's sake. So from here is where you're going to want to make sure that you trigger the Kit that is in the graveyard. First and foremost, you're going to send the copy of Nerval to the grave, and then the Nerval is going to trigger to add you a copy of Kuras to your hand. So from here, you're going to go ahead, you haven't normal summoned yet, so you'll normal summon that Kuras, which will then allow you to banish for cost the copy of Kit and Nerval that are in your graveyard currently. That is going to allow you to get into your copy of Bear Brum. Now remember, when Bear Brum is sent to the grave, you do have the ability to add a Revolt to the, add a Tri-Brigade spell or trap from the deck to your hand, and then you could just put a card from your hand back. So you're going for a mulligan. So what we're going to do is use the Ronin Raccoon Sendayu and the Bear Brum into a link summon into a Faragit. So remember, you are under beasts at the moment, and Faragit is a beast. What you're really doing is just trying to trigger that Bear Brum so that you can go ahead and add that Revolt to your hand and put a card back into the deck. So it's a pseudo 1-card starter because it does require for you to have a card in your hand to add back off of Bear Brum's effect. But if you're going first, most of the time you're going to have plenty of cards in your hand to do so. So now you have access to your Revolt, that's most important, and now you have the materials necessary to go into your Naturia Beast. So you'll use the Kuras, the Bellerophon, and the token to actually synchro summon into your copy of Naturia Beast. So this is going to be your end board. You're going to go ahead and set that Revolt, and now you have essentially a walking Imperial Order, and you have the copy of Revolt, which you can then use to go into a Shurag to banish your opponent's card, and then of course get all the effects from the Tri-Brigade that are currently in your graveyard. So guys, thank you so much for sticking around and watching this profile. I really appreciate it. Please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and enjoy watching videos like these. And until next time, GG.